Yeah, pop, pop. What do we say, earthquake? Pop, pop.
Pop.
All right. Hello and welcome to Unlimited. No, that's my YouTube channel.
Wow, getting complicated, huh?
Yeah, I know.
Should we
I'm
just use them now?
Yeah, I'm doing too many things. I'm sorry. Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Party People.
How's everyone doing?
This is episode number 5.
4.
No? Is it? This is episode 4, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing 5 on Friday. I'm an idiot. We're going to take this all back.
The wheels are really coming off this thing.
Yeah. Too much on my mind. We're going to restart this.
All right. Do you want to do anything before we get started? Take a moment.
Yeah, let me center myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Got too much on
Please.
my mind.
Take as much time as you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do that awful actor thing where I just and scene. Get into character.
It does help, though. I mean, as cliche and dumb as it is, it does help.
I mean, yeah, that's true. It is good to center yourself before starting something, as we can clearly see from that awful introduction, which we're 100% going to keep in, because, I mean...
Authenticity is everything.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Hello, and welcome to Pop Culture Party People, episode number 4. This is, our 4th episode. We've done it. We've done it. We've achieved everything that we meant to achieve. We got past 3.
Yeah. 3 is a magic number, and 4 is a true test if you are actually going to follow through with an activity. So we made it, you know? Basically, it's the equivalent of quitting smoking. We survived the litmus test, and now it's just a part of our everyday life. So,
well, that's the thing with smoking, right? You're supposed to, get past 3 days, is it? No? Or is it supposed to be a month? I can't remember what it is.
I think it's 3 to 4 days of not smoking at all, and then it's a week, and then it's a month, and then it's a year. And that's the rest of your life.
That's how time works. So
yeah. What good advice? Hey man, if you want to quit smoking, just give it 3 days. You made it 3 days? All right. Now just give it the rest of your life. All right. You're done.
That's true. I mean, I've smoked cigarettes before in my life, and I always enjoy an occasional cigarette. Mm-hmm. I will say that there have been times where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a cigarette and it's going to be fine. But I've never had a very addictive personality. I don't know about you. Like alcohol's never been a problem for me. Drinking's never, smoking, any of those things. It was never something that I was always yearning for. I think maybe if there's anything that I've been addicted to slightly is maybe food. I have a deep love of food, obviously from my size, but it's also families are like that, you know? The way that our family shows love and caring is through food.
It's through food.
Yeah.
And family meals. That's how you comfort someone. That's how you show love. I get it. Yeah. I don't necessarily have an addictive personality. I did smoke for a long time. I was a pack-a-day kind of guy. I kicked the habit. If anything, I'm not an addict. I'm more of a natural-born quitter. I excel at quitting things, so... Well, whatever it is I might be into, I'll find a very easy way of quitting it. So believe you me, I'm very good at that.
Well, I don't know if you've ever listened to. Did you ever listen to Freakonomics?
No, I didn't. I'll be honest.
It's a podcast, and they did a documentary. It's been one of my favorite podcasts for a while, and they're all looking into the socioeconomics and social economics of life. Sure. And they had an amazing episode about quitting, which actually I too have quit quite a few things. I quit acting, I quit all these other stuff, and there's definitely a part of you that, as our society entails, it's you shouldn't quit. Quitting is awful. Quitting means you failed in some way.
You're a loser. You didn't follow through. Yeah.
But there was this amazing episode about why quitting is actually really beneficial for you as a person to grow and experience new things and kind of learn what makes you tick more than just following something because people say that you have to keep going with it. And that's all about, finding joy and finding things that make you happy. So
it's the economy of time, too. If you're going to keep putting time into something that you hate and it's not good for you, you're just wasting your life. You're wasting the economy of time because you cannot get more time. You can get more money, you can get plenty of things to recover from, but time you can't. So just dumping all your time into something that you hate and just don't want to bother with is a complete waste of time. So it makes sense that Freakonomics will look into that and be like, hey, quitting is important to figure out who you are as a person, also not waste your goddamn time.
Yeah,
and it's also kind of
they talk about that in the episode as well. Yeah, you can't you can't take it with you, and you can't get it back. You know, all the time that you spend doing something, if you're enjoying it, it's worth your time. But if you start actively hating it, it's not worth your time anymore, and therefore should be let go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a nice contrast of sticking through and going through adversity, but then at a certain point just kind of realizing that something's not for you and moving on, which is kind of like looking at an old movie you once loved or something that you used to really love, and then kind of looking at it again. You know, was that just the rose-covered glasses telling you something you really enjoyed, or is it actually worth your time as a grown-up? You know?
Well, that is a very perfect segue into a new segment we're going to be doing here at Pop Culture Party People. So, obviously, a big portion of pop culture is devoted to nostalgia, right? Like,
Big
pop
time.
culture by its very nature is nostalgic because you get attached to these franchises, you start caring about these imaginary people that, you know, shouldn't really have any sway over your life, but they have like an emotional resonance with you and they remind you of better times. So me and Warren thought it would be really cool if, we started re-watching things that we loved as kids or loved when we were younger and actively looking at them as adults and professionals who are in the industry and whether or not they held up.
Do they hold up? Are they good? Yeah. Are they as good as our kid brains remember them being?
That's a phenomenal question, and that brings us to the new segment, which is called is it good?
It's good?
Yeah, is it good?
But is it good though?
Yeah. But is it good?
Yeah, those are really good points, and I hear you. But is it good?
Yeah. So this is a little bit different from what we normally do where we recommend stuff. All the things that we are watching, maybe one of us has not seen it or something like that, but we are familiar with it. We know the franchise. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a film or TV show or book or podcast that we've already listened to. And we're going to revisit it with adult critical eyes. And we're going to take a serious look at our nostalgia and see whether or not it passes the test of nerddom.
Let all our cynicism rip up our childhood favorites piece by piece, and let's see what's left. But you already got ahead and chose a film, right?
Yeah, I thought a good place to start would be something that I know both of us have seen, both of us love, and I was kind of in the mood for as well. Because I know that we're thinking about doing another segment about like kung fu films and adding that to the channel.
The Wu-Tang Collection or whatever.
Yeah, the Wu-Tang Collection that's on YouTube. And I thought a good place to start would be essentially one of the very first kung fu films I ever really saw. And it's not really a
Bruce Lee?
Oh. No.
Oh, no.
It is Kung Pao, Enter the Fist.
No! I love that movie. First of all, let me start right there. I'm not saying, oh no, to that movie. I'm just saying, oh no, that was your first introduction to Kung Fu films.
So yeah, I would say that when I was growing up, Kung Fu films weren't like a huge part of our house. It's not to say that we didn't like them. It was just one of those things where it's like, it wasn't around too much. But obviously you start picking up all like the social implications and stuff of kung fu movies. Like I remember fucking Bruce Lee being in the Brisk commercials and stuff like that. And you like for a lot of Westerners, I think that's kind of maybe some of the first time that they're interacting with Asian cinema, right? Where it's like Bruce Lee's usually like your entry point. Right?
Yes.
For a lot of people, Bruce is really like the first one that you would potentially see, if not maybe Jackie.
Maybe Jet Li. Like I think around the time that we were growing up in the 90s and 2000s, Jackie was humongous. So that might be a good foray for people too.
But funnily in my mind, when I was a kid, I never thought of Jackie Chan as an action star. I always thought of him as like a comedian, like a physical comic. And that's because of like Rush Hour and stuff like that. But of course, when you go back and visit Jackie's old stuff, he's a fucking master. The dude's like such an inspiration for action films and everything.
I don't know, man. So Jackie Chan holds like a lot of love in our family. We had a tradition, any vacation we would take, we would have to either watch a Nick Cage movie or a Jackie Chan movie. Like we'd go to any rental space that existed and we would go, and it'd be a joke because it would always happen. Every vacation we'd end up watching like Con Air or Rumble in the Bronx. And we'd be like, wait, why does this happen every time? All right, well, it's just our tradition now. Like which movie are we going to see? And Jackie Chan is just incredible. Yes, he's a comedian. Yes, he able to blend silent comedy with martial arts. But the things that he's doing is just so incredible. Like, he is the epitome of an action movie star, in my opinion. So considering he does all his own stunts and does them exceptionally so well, and
Absolutely.
his craft and love for it.
As a kid, I didn't realize that, though. As a kid, he was just the guy from Rush Hour who interacted with Chris Tucker.
Right.
But as I got older and I got more into cinema, and I realized how incredible not only was he for Chinese cinema, but actively bringing more, Westerners to like Chinese martial arts and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, he is an amazing figure.
Yeah, and that's going to be the difference in our households. Like kung fu movies were instilled pretty early on, and I watched Bruce Lee movies and Jet Li movies and Jackie Chan movies as early as I can remember. And I remember just adoring those guys. Admittedly, I was a Jet Li guy more so than a Jackie Chan guy, just because he was like more embellished and closer to an anime than he was a grounded human being.
He was cooler. Like,
Jet
Li had some fucking swagger, bro.
He dated Aaliyah, so that's my guy. So
I would say, yeah, it is the difference in our households, because like a lot of my childhood movies and stuff like that, my dad was big into Spielberg, really big into like George Lucas, and also we liked Schwarzenegger quite a bit. So like those were maybe more of like my action-y movies and stuff like that.
Sure.
But Kung Pao, Enter the Fist is, I can say, is it good? 100% yes. Rewatching this was a fucking joy. I honestly cried when I was laughing, like from laughter, rewatching it. I hadn't seen this in about maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years. And sitting down and actively seeing not only like the love and attention that they put into like bringing those two films like back to life to a certain degree, infused with all of the like both incredibly stupid jokes but incredibly great jokes.
Yeah, I could quote that movie right now. I love the lines in that movie.
You 100%.
Betty.
You can call me Betty. We are ventriloquists.
I'd like a pound of nuts. That's a lot of nuts! That'd be $4, baby. You want fries with that?
Yeah, the thing that got me crying was, in the very beginning, which, by the way, this is the best 10-minute opening fucking ever. It's when they're doing the quick cutaway shots with the gong between him and like everybody.
Bro.
Yeah. It just goes on for so long and is so drawn out, but it's so perfectly timed. I love everything about this movie. I will say, I wanted to get your opinion because obviously it's taking two Chinese films and then putting a white guy in as the lead.
Sure.
But how do you think that they handled the, quote unquote, like cultural appropriation of it? Do you think that they were respectful of it? Do you think that it's cool that they brought these films that would probably never be like seen the light of day to get a little bit more of like a facelift and stuff like that? I'd love to hear your opinion on that sort of aspect of it.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that, for giving me my platform to speak on that. And I think about that a lot with this movie because I love it so much, and like trying to figure out like, yeah, it could be considered cultural appropriation because it's a white guy literally putting his face on top of an Asian body, becoming the main character, or putting himself as the main character and taking over the story and being a white savior and kind of poking fun at all these things. But he's not poking fun of them for being Chinese. He's not like you rice-eating bastard. He's not like you flat-faced piece of shit. There's nothing. There's like that would never work. First of all, but he's poking fun at the movie itself. He's like they're making funny voices, or they're doing like the plot line is just ridiculous of like pulling cubes out of someone's chest, and it's more just like taking a thing that they clearly loved and just creating a funny a satire, inclusive satire of what they're hoping to make. So I don't think it's a cultural appropriation, and I think it's a good way of, I don't know, just kind of having fun with the platform that wouldn't work otherwise.
No, I agree. I think you can tell that there's a clear love from Steve Odenkirk when it came to doing this. Like, he wouldn't have made the movie in the first place if that wasn't the case. But yeah, there are no jokes at anybody of Asian descent, No joke that is racist never makes it in. None of it. It has nothing to do with that. The entire film is predicated on the idea that these two Chinese films that they like adapted were so ridiculous that they didn't know what to do with them. So they decided to like splice them together and then include jokes on top of it. Yeah. And I think that's an amazing format. And I would love to see more Asian actors potentially do that. You know, instead of it being Steve Odenkirk in the lead, I would love to see Asian actors who genuinely love these films and have a reverence for these films actively make them funny again or do what they did.
I think there's a good medium for that on YouTube. You know, I think kind of what that is when people take animes and then do these live action recreations of it, you know, making all the jokes land and then adding the animation to it and really kind of blowing it up to make it this kind of fusion that a real movie studio can't seem to pull off, but an independent group of people on YouTube can excel at it. So
well, that's because I think it's derived completely from passion, and movie studios aren't really built on passion. They're built on like money making.
Yeah, money.
So yeah, on the very first segment of but is it good? I can't recommend Kung Pao Enter the Fist enough. If you haven't seen it in a long time, seriously, guys, it's on Hulu right now.
Is it? Great.
Yeah, that's where I watched it.
I'm gonna watch that
feel
tonight.
Free to download it or fucking pick it up. I honestly had such a good time rewatching it, and it brought back some like memories for me as a kid as well. That I remember seeing this in the theater with my friend, my best friend at the time, and we laughed our asses off as kids, and I laughed my ass off again as like close to a 30-year-old. So I think that film is a little bit magic, honestly.
I agree. I remember seeing that movie for the first time in theaters too. I was driven with my friends Steve and Matt Baywall, and I was sick in the car, and their dad was driving this movie theater, and I was like, all right, don't throw up in the car, and we get out, and they see me like about to like lean over and throw up, and I wasn't on anything. I was in middle school, so I was just like sick for some reason, and they're like, no, don't throw up here. My dad won't let us go see the movie. Throw up now. Wait, and we just had to turn a corner, get up halfway up these stairs, and I threw up all over these stairs, and they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. They're like, all right, let's go see the movie now. We ran inside and laughed our ass off. I'll never forget that. It was so...
Yeah, that's an amazing memory. That's hysterical, too. That
it's a perfect introduction to Kung Pao. You know?
Yeah, your body just wanted to reject it, but you couldn't.
Yeah. It's like, oh, here's some gross out humor before you go in this movie.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Wait, one question. Does the cow scene hold up?
The cow scene is still a little rough, but once again, because the film is so inherently funny and so inherently like sketchy with what they're doing, because you know, like they're splicing him, they're splicing his head onto a body sometimes, and this is 2002, mind you, so the CG has come a long way.
Oh yeah, big time.
But kind of much like Airplane or any other fantastic satire comedy that is like goofball comedy, I guess I should say, it doesn't need to look amazing because that's not the point. Actually, the more ridiculous it looks, the more you kind of love it and endear it to you because, you know, they probably had next to no money to make this, you know?
How familiar are you with Steve Odenkirk's career?
This is the only thing I know him from.
Well, he also made Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls, I think it is.
Oh, he directed that?
He directed that. And
I love Ace Ventura 2. I mean, White Devil.
Yeah. But if you want to see his early work, he did some really weird experimental shit. He took popular properties and replaced every character with a thumb. And he would draw faces and mouth and put costumes over them, and then he would dub his lips over it. And so he did a movie called Bat Thumb, where he plays the Michael Keaton Batman. He does God Thumb. I think he does Titanic Thumb, something like that. And if you like his jokes, though, it looks like crap. It's like a student-made middle schooler movie, but they were funny. They were funny. Is it good? Maybe we'll venture into that. But I remember enjoying it. Definitely remember enjoying it. Well,
we've done this one. You have a recommendation for next episode for Is It Good? And I'd be interested to hear what you think we should watch to entice our nostalgia. Get that old that old feeling on my lips.
Well, I think I want to stay in the martial arts genre, but I also want to do nostalgia of being a kid watching that stuff. So I think for Is It Good, for my segment, I'm going to do Surf Ninjas. So
okay. Fun fact, I've never seen Three Ninjas, Surf Ninjas. I haven't seen any of these films.
I recommend you watch those right away, and then we can talk about Is It Good. You must.
Well, that's definitely going to happen. I remember distinctly. So my childhood was a little bit interesting. My parents gave me a lot of free reign when it came to like movie watching.
Okay.
So it necessarily wasn't like restricted to kids' films, even when I was relatively young. So when we would like go out and rent movies or stuff like that, sometime like I know that a lot of kids had like movies that they were restricted to watching, of course. And you have a little bit of a benefit because you had two brothers, right? Who could like I think that's maybe one of the reasons why you have more like action films and stuff in your catalog was because you had two older brothers who probably were into those things. I was just out on my lonesome as a only child living
just
in the wilderness
wilderness,
in the wilderness of Maine.
Yeah, just cutting down movies at Blockbuster, trying to figure out what to watch. No one to argue with. No one to knock down your ideas.
We didn't have a Blockbuster, so I grew up in a very rural town in Kingfield, Maine. We had a population of less than 1,000, and yeah, we had a local video store. But no, we didn't have the closest Blockbuster was like 45 minutes away in like Farmington or Stratton. So yeah, no, I can like the back of my hand, I can remember our little video store in town. It had all the video games were on the first floor and all the kid stuff was on the first floor. And then when you went upstairs, it was all the horror movies. And those scared me as a kid because back in the day, the horror covers were fantastic. Like all movie covers nowadays are the same. And it's awful. Every fucking movie poster kind of just blends together in this like amalgamation of like shapes and impact font.
Right. And who's in it? Like they're trying to sell the actors more so than the project. Like
yeah, absolutely. But back in the day, horror movie posters used to be great. They used to be like these drawn or, you know, highly stylized pieces of like content media. And goddamn, yeah, no, I can remember that like it's the back of my hand. But to that point, I've never seen Surf Ninjas or Three Ninjas, and I'm going to watch them, and we're going to figure out whether or not it's good.
Well, I have a sticking suspicion that you are not going to think they're good because you are a full-grown man watching them for the first time. And also, if you like movie posters, you should look up the movie posters for both movies. Both, if I can recall, have like a real vibrant orange cover, and they're all kicking through something probably.
Yeah, the Three Ninja covers is very vivid in my mind because I used to see it all the time. I just never rented it as a kid. It's bright red, like a red-orange, and all three of them are doing like a flying crane kick out of like the poster. Yeah, I know
that movie was huge because three brothers, three ninjas, and then of course we would just become which subsequent ninja we were. I was eldest was Rocky, so John was Rocky, Kevin was Colt, and I was Tum Tum. So and then it kind of like gave us our personalities for a while too. John was the brazen leader. Kevin was the most athletic one, but also didn't want to take instruction. And Tum Tum was the cute one who would always be eating. So it really just kind of fit really
just
well.
Just all fell into place.
Yeah.
My only kind of series with that, I remember I had a really, there was a neighbor of mine who was the same age as me, and we loved Mortal Kombat. And we would recreate the fights in Mortal Kombat, but that's I think that's as close as we can get to the same sort of thing. And it's one of those things where it's like I've never regretted not having brothers or sisters, but I do think that there are those like moments from your childhood, right, where it's like that sounds like amazing stories that you'll remember for the rest of your life and all that good stuff. So
truly. Yeah, we had a neighbor's trampoline that we would go to and play on, and like Kevin and I would go on that all the time and like recreate WWF matches or pretend we were like Saiyans and fight people. It was those moments will be treasured in our hearts forever.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that is it for this segment of but is it good? Please go watch Kung Pao if you've never seen it, and if you haven't seen it in a long time, it holds up. It holds up really well. The jokes still land. It's still fucking hysterical.
Thank you.
Let me just say, wee wee wee.
You can defeat him now!
Chosen one! I'm coming! Oh, fuck. That movie's amazing. And it also made me, I don't know, we're going to talk about like The Vow and Lovecraft Country and stuff like that in a second, but I don't know about you. You're obviously more in the comedy scene than I am. Do you miss comedies? Because I really miss them. And I miss us making them. And I don't mean stand-up. I mean like actual comedic movies that are like Airplane or like Kung Pao or, you know, I feel like the last big comedy that I saw was like The Hangover. And that was like a fucking decade ago.
Yeah. I think The Hangover ruined it all. Because The Hangover made so much money that studios were like, can you do that again? We're just trying to do that now. We're not trying to make a quality comedy. We're just trying to chase that dragon of like making however much insane amount of money that movie made. Yeah, I miss it. Sure. But I think there's also so much great television to watch comedy now. There's so much great live comedy you can go and see. And yeah,
well, I would say that like that's true, but like even Palm Springs, which I loved and which was hysterical. There's still like a lot of like heaviness in it and like emotional catharsis and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I don't like that in my movies, but every once in a while it would be nice to kind of watch like a dumb comedy again, like a Naked Gun or something like that. And kind of maybe it doesn't always have to have that like emotional heart every time. I like it.
I'd almost argue though that animated movies like, well, no, that's not true. Let me just say, I think the Lego animated movies are that. I think they fill that void. It's just like dumb nonsense, just having a good time, landing jokes left and right.
I agree with that. Yeah, I feel the past two Lego movies were fantastic. I think he's a phenomenal writer, and I think that team is amazing. But yeah, no, I don't know. There's a part of me, and I'm even thinking about doing like a YouTube video about this. Like, yeah, I miss Naked Gun. I miss I miss like Tommy Boy. Yeah. I haven't seen a movie like that in a really long time, and then the reason why they're not making movies like that is because they don't sell. They're not profitable overseas, and I think that's doing us as Americans a disservice. Like, you know, you don't always have to make a movie so that it sells buku bucks over in other countries. You can make stuff that's good for here and make it on a limited budget.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there's some research to be had of like maybe the last 4 years the country has been in a bad mood and they haven't wanted to laugh, so they've been doing more
Why would that be?
Oh, I don't know. Let's think about that. Why in the last 4 years has this country...
I don't know. It seems like a weird timeline. I don't understand why you would say the last 4 years, like specifically the last 4 years?
Yeah, just specifically the last 4 years.
Like starting in 2016, like around maybe November of 2016?
So not quite fully 4 years, but we're getting close to it. And hopefully the end of those 4 years.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, the past 4 years have been nothing but a fucking dream for me.
Anywho, I think I'm curious now, after that, about hearing about some dead eyes. Let's talk about our recommendations, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about anything else before we get into our recommendation segment? Do you want to talk about The Vow a little bit, or Lovecraft Country, or anything else that you've watched this week before we go directly into our next segment?
I want to talk about Lovecraft Country. I haven't watched The Vow yet, so that's why I don't want to talk about that.
Somebody's slacking. All right, I didn't realize. All right, you think somebody's committed to a podcast, but I guess not. I don't think we're going to make it episode 5. Okay, that is it for Pop Culture Party People. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey, it's been a real pleasure. Find me on ride. I Will Not Watch The Vow Anymore podcast.
No, that's cool. Lovecraft Country, once again, this week was fucking amazing. They are literally following the book, basically. I can't say to the letter, because if I remember correctly in the book, but I need to look this up, they like befriend the ghost. They actively do like an exorcism, but I don't remember the ghost being I remember the ghost being racist. I do remember that, but I don't remember them like getting rid of it. I remember them like I remember the lady like bending it to her will, and he actively starts like helping the family. So,
but was he still conducting experiments in the house? Is that still the same?
So the house, I don't want to spoil anything. And which, by the way, I guess we should have said spoilers for the episode before.
It's happening.
Yeah.
We've gone too far.
Yeah, we've done it. I'm sorry if you haven't seen the episode yet. My bad. My B.
Yeah.
Would you like me to kind of reveal more, or you want to find it out on your own?
I mean, I don't want anything to be ruined in the future. If there's any way to talk about what's already happened, that would be great.
I would say there's more to the house.
Yeah, it shows that with the ruins and that long pathway of all those corpses, and they were conducting experiments to learn more about the Book of Adam. And the trailer seems like they're going to venture in there and they have to go over some uncrossable bridge with some crazy demon that they're going to deal with.
So yes, that is all true, and that is all very interesting. I'm especially interested to see there's a segment later in the book that's it's kind of about like shape-shifting and stuff like that. I'm interested to see how they handle that.
Well, I'm interested too because I say this every time we talk about this show. It's moving so fast. Like I will keep saying that. I feel like every episode could be its own season. And I'm not mad that they're not doing that. They're not doing that, and I really love it. They were able to take an entire haunted house story, which would be a movie normally, and just smash it into an hour. And they did it pretty well. I think at times I was lost and I had to go back and rewatch it. By times I mean like one time. I didn't fully understand the I forgot her name. The white woman with platinum blonde hair hiring that guy to give Letitia the money and the house. Like that. It was all kind of like exposition at the last 5 minutes, kind of being like, wait, what is going on? But
that's setting up a bunch of like puppet mastery stuff that we've obviously seen, because he's the bloodline, which we learned from the first episode. He's very important, right. And they're kind of orchestrating things behind the scenes. But I agree. I think maybe I've got the benefit because I did read the book, so I didn't have to revisit that to have it make sense. Right. But I will say that maybe because they are going at such a breakneck pace, which is both good and could potentially be bad. It hasn't affected them yet, which is nice. Like I said, I hope that they don't stop it after this season. It's so good.
Agreed.
But it seems like they're kind of on pace to just finish the book and maybe just make it like a mini series, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I'm glad it exists, but when we got this much talent and like creativity and. I don't think Lovecraft gets enough like attention story-wise. Like his framework for worlds is so interesting. Like I love seeing stuff like that. I mean, that's the reason why Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time. I love any time that like Lovecraft mythology can be incorporated into something, and to have it be in such a timely piece about racism in America and stuff like that. I think is great. Yeah,
between that and The Watchmen are handling it really well and really promoting this great story. Of Black people being able to be the center of the story and carry a story and show both their struggles and their successes. I wonder, though, if they'll do an anthology. This is kind of what I was hoping for Stranger Things. It's like, instead of telling this long story for 4 seasons kind of going into the ground, just tell their story and then go on to a different decade or a different group of people and just like do the same tone but just tell a different story. Like your audience will be there for it.
I think that would be a fantastic way to do it. Yeah, like make it the children of, or 10 years later, 20 years later. You can still have callbacks to the original, but you're not locked into this thing where it's like, we need to see 11 grow up. It's like, well, we don't need to. Like story could have ended. I understand why you're continuing it. And I'm not mad they're continuing it. I have enjoyed all the seasons of Stranger Things, but it's you limit yourself.
I don't want Hopper to be alive, though. I'll say that much. Like Hopper being alive is just kind of like, all right, this just takes me out of it. Not the demons or anything or the psychic powers, but Hopper being alive takes me out of it.
Well, that's the whole thing with plot armor, right? Like the second that you give a character this inability to be killed, it takes away all the tension.
Sure does.
That's what made Game of Thrones so amazing when it was going through the thing. It's like you were ready at any point in time to see people die. And that gave it a certain level of like, oh shit, I hope they did. But of course, for the last 2 seasons, that didn't happen with anyone. Everybody lived. Everybody got out scot-free, except for the final episode, which was a fucking abomination. God, yeah.
Is there like a... So what should do a study of like how many conversations about pop culture does it always link back to the ending of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, how Game of Thrones was ruined.
Yeah,
I would love to do that study because I mean, talk about it. Talk about a show that literally didn't have to do that. They could have done anything else, and it would have satisfied fans. But they chose the one path that would be the worst.
Yep.
And nobody, I think it was like have you ever seen the George Lucas behind the scenes when they're doing Phantom Menace?
Mm-mm.
I highly encourage you to go watch those because it's right. Literally George Lucas in a room full of yes men as they're just like, and one of my favorite lines from George is like, well, Jar Jar is really the heart of the film.
Yes, of course. Yes, great. Yes, more Jar Jar.
And you're just like, if actually, have you watched Red Letter Media?
I think so. Doesn't ring a bell though.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'll save that for one of our recommendations. But he has videos about that, which we should talk about on a different episode. But okay, cool. We've talked about Lovecraft Country. Now let us get into the things that we recommended to each other from last episode. For those of you who didn't listen to last episode or forgot, we both recommended something that is called Dead Eyes. Dead Eyes. One a podcast and one a comic book. Warren, please go first on your recommendation to me.
Well, I recommended Dead Eyes, a podcast by Connor Ratliff to you, which is a podcast of this wonderful comedian who got casted on the HBO show Band of Brothers, which was going to be directed by Tom Hanks. In the timeline of, I think he was coming off of Castaway, so he's all like skinny and malnourished shooting that, to then go right into directing Band of Brothers. So he was cast as a role, and suddenly his agent calls him to tell him that he was uncast and he had to re-audition for Tom Hanks, and the note that he was given was that he has dead eyes. Needless to say, he didn't get the part, and he's been traumatized this for close to 2 decades now, and this is his attempt at trying to track down the people involved and ask them what happened. But along the way, he then begins to ask the question of how does an actor handle all this and the process of auditioning and things of that nature. And yeah, what did you think?
I absolutely loved this podcast. One, because I've been going through some of those emotions myself anyway, recently. But yeah, I had not known about Connor Radcliffe, but when I looked at his resume and I'd seen, I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely one of those actors where you're like, oh yeah, I've fucking seen him in that.
Mrs.
Of
Maisel.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have to say that, yeah, the podcast in many ways could have been awful, right? It sounds like on the face of it, it's just like this actor
just being
kind of like,
whiny. Why not me? I'm great. I'm special.
Why didn't I get this? It was mine. I deserved it. No.
Connor is so much greater than that.
It is so much more grounded in self-reflection and what does it mean to be a creative person and what does it mean to be rejected as a creative person, and not so much about the ego of being like, I deserve this, but more along the lines of, why am I not good enough for this? And when you kind of flip the script on that, right, and it instead turns into a reflection on the industry and about, you know, the lengths that some people will go to for fame and for fortune and stuff like that. It's a beautiful story that I don't know is finished because it had its last episode about 2 months ago. And he hasn't met Tom Hanks yet. Like that hasn't come to fruition yet. But the interviews that he does get and the funny coincidences of his life, like, yeah, he was in a production with John Hamm, who obviously had some huge troubles in his career as well. Honestly, being told by one of the largest studio heads of all time that he would never be a television actor, literally ever.
Actor. Insane.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts. Gets to interview Seth Rogen and Bobby Moynihan and a bunch of other phenomenal comedians that, you know, are tangentially connected. Like, I didn't know Seth Rogen auditioned for Band of Brothers. Like, that's hysterical. It's a beautiful podcast if, one, you are a creative person and you don't know if it's working out, right? Like, it's definitely worth listening it from that. It's worth listening to it from a production standpoint to find out maybe kind of like the inner workings of what goes into like a big production, because, you know, when you don't get something, and the podcast does a phenomenal job of going into the machine is much bigger than you, the actor.
Yep. So much you can't control.
You will take it very personally because you are a person and being rejected sucks. But at the end of the day, most movies require, and the TV show of that size, are hundreds of people. The crews are hundreds of people large. You are just a tiny little cog in this massive machine.
Yep. Don't take it personally. You did nothing wrong. Please move about your day. It's bigger than you. Yeah.
So thank you for recommending it. I don't know if I would have found it on my own. Like it definitely is. It definitely seems like something that you would listen to from the comedy, like community and stuff like that. And I'm sure it was shared pretty heavily in the comedy community. Well, especially around UCB.
He's a UCB performer, a weekend team, huge member of that. He's like one of those profoundly talented, got on a team pretty early on, just like kind of rose in fame inside of UCB and otherwise. So just as a fan of him alone, I found this podcast. Well, he wasn't promoting it or anything like that. He does this fantastic live show called the George Lucas Talk Show, where he performs as George Lucas. And anyone he will have on the show, he'll somehow find a way of finding that George Lucas was responsible for making that happen, or he dropped some George Lucas knowledge. He has Griffin Newman playing Watto as his co-host. It is so good. They now have their own. They brought back their talk show on a YouTube space where they have Skype calls with people, and still as funny as ever. The live show I saw, he had Ira Glass on there, and he, as George Lucas, he told Ira Glass that he should be thanking him for his job because George Lucas single-handedly made NPR a thing. Because when NPR first started off, they reached out to George Lucas to do a Star Wars radio show. And because of that, it gained popularity and it continued getting funding. So, all improvised in the moment, in character of George Lucas, he wanted a thank you from Ira Glass. He's just a fantastic performer. Just so funny.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to looking into more stuff that he's done on the sketch side because. Yeah, he just seems like a good dude, too. Genuinely seems like a solid human being.
Yeah. He was, he if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, you can go through, I can give you a list of all these podcasts that he's been on, and he tells his story. He, at one point, was working at Barnes & Noble and was content just being an employee of Barnes & Noble's and just doing improv, just if it fit his life, he was happy to do it. But only when Barnes & Noble's got bought out by a bigger company and started putting in all these restrictions and started kind of bothering him of just a job that he excelled at, that he was just disillusioned by it. And then his career started kind of exploding, so he could just kind of move forward with it all. So,
yeah, dude, no, I'd be interested to hear more about that off the show.
yeah,
I'd love a full list of stuff that he's done. So that is the Dead Eyes podcast. It's available pretty much anywhere that you can listen to it. Highly recommended, especially if you're a creative person, but if you're just interested in an interesting story that has a lot of twists and turns and interacts with a lot of famous people that you probably like, can't recommend it enough. It's really fucking great.
All right. Well, do you want to give a little background of your Dead Eyes recommendation?
Yes, absolutely. So, for those of you who are big into comic books, maybe this one slid past your attention. It's a relatively new series from Image. And could you tell me who the writers and artists are on the cover?
Duggan McCree, Spicer, and Sabino?
So all of these people are not huge names in the industry. The writer has done some amazing stuff before, but this is kind of his, I would say maybe best work that I've read from him. Okay. So it tells the story of a kind of more violent Robin Hood-esque character living in Boston. And I actually find Boston being the place where the comic takes place really interesting. Obviously, for a lot of comic book fans, we're used to New York or LA or, Metropolis or Gotham. It's always interesting to kind of step into a town that is maybe well known to us, at least as comic book readers. I know quite a bit about Boston. I've been to Boston quite a few times, but I don't ever think really gets brought up in the context of comics very frequently. And I think Boston plays a really nice central role in the telling of this story and kind of the the values that it brings to it, because he, Deadeyes himself, which is the character, is this, once again, Robin Hood-esque guy fighting crime on behalf of the little guy in Boston. Kind of, this Irish, hardworking, blue-collar people taking on the mob and stuff like that, and stealing from them. And that is the central story of this book. Deadeyes was well known in the Boston area for committing these crimes and doing these robberies, but his most well-known crime is stealing from the mob in Boston. And that was his last big score. And we pick up, quote-unquote last big score. And we pick up with his life after he's been retired for like 25 years and has almost no money and is trying to figure out how to pay for like his wife's medical bills, trying to figure out whether or not he should be Deadeyes again, and kind of coming to terms with his own age and what he's done as a criminal. And that is a good baseline for you to talk about whether or not you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I read within like an hour and really just kind of sped through it. It's such a mix of like, it's like Rorschach from The Watchmen meets like Deadpool, because he's like very quippy and has like this devil-may-care attitude and kind of fun while he's in the Deadeyes persona, but he's beating up villains and he's like violently defending himself against karate masters, like cutting fingers off, and he's like turning MRI machines on. 1 second, my cat is tearing up.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, cats are amazing, but also assholes.
Yes, they demand so much goddamn attention. It's drawn really, really beautifully. I guess my only critique is I'm curious to see the longevity of it. I felt like where they ended it, I felt closure in it personally. Like, I don't feel compelled to read any more of it. I felt like, oh, this was a really great piece. I don't really need to see it go any further for me personally, but I really enjoyed what I read.
I agree with that. I know that the comic is continuing, but in some ways I feel like it's a pretty fantastic piece of like standalone one-shot storytelling. And I'm interested to see where it goes because I loved it so much. But yeah, if I don't get a chance to, read any further, I think for like the $11 or $12 for the trade paperback, it is well worth you reading it. And it's definitely one of those things where Image has always been my favorite comic book company. One, because they're so willing to tell stories that, the big two, DC and Marvel, usually don't tell. Right. And all of the comics are owned by the creators as well. Image obviously has a stake in them, but it is creator owned and creator promised, when you're working for Image, you're not necessarily under these very strict guidelines to tell stories that might be uncomfortable or weird.
Yeah, and I think that where their passion projects can thrive and live. They can really put out what they are hoping to make, and there's no one to tell them not to do it. And it shows in a lot of the work that Image puts out. You can just feel a lot more care and tenderness and passion and quality storytelling.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great. Way to, if you've never been a big comic book person, start with some Image titles. Start with some standalone books that Image has done, because Deadeyes is a great place to start. 6 issues long, like I said. Warren read it in less than an hour or so, or an hour. You can really just get a really fantastic story, and then move on to other things that you care about.
Yeah, start with Saga. I mean, it's really long, but I mean, I'll suck you right in. It's an incredible new age Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Saga and Brian K. Vaughan is my all-time favorite comic book writer. Why the Last Man, I think, is probably the greatest piece of literature ever written.
Yeah.
But yeah, Saga is a masterpiece, and I cannot wait to see how they're gonna, because it's nearing its end. They're working on the final arc right now, so I cannot wait to see what they do with it.
And it's gonna be a TV show soon too, right?
I believe so. I mean, Why the Last Man has been slated to be a TV show for 5+ years now, and
sure.
Saga can potentially fall into that same sort of development hell. It's really, and also if they're going to do Saga, that's much more involved than Why the Last Man.
Oh my God. Dude, the sets, the costumes.
Saga's
TV
got so many different interesting looking alien characters and stuff like that. I don't know how they're gonna necessarily pull that off unless they have a massive budget. But if Game of Thrones is any indication, if you throw a lot of money into a production and you actively have phenomenal writers working on it who are really passionate about it, you can make a show that people will flock to and will keep coming back to. Just don't ruin the ending.
Sure. Or put on Sci-Fi, like they can make it work on Sci-Fi. They can make any show work on Sci-Fi. I don't know.
I guess. I haven't watched Sci-Fi in a while. I just remember Sci-Fi for like the late night budget movies like Ice Spiders and Sharktopus.
I remember Farscape. I loved Farscape as a kid.
Is Farscape the one with the dude with the thing on his forehead, or
no,
Stargate?
No. That's Stargate. Farscape is actually that is Stargate. So Farscape is about a guy who discovered wormholes while he was flying through space, and he entered a different reality, a different alternate place, and he's trying to get back home. It's John Crichton, and it's just an incredible show. Check out Farscape.
Oh, well, thank you for coming onto the show, Guy. It's your first time being on Pop Culture Party, people.
It's my honor. I've actually been really just biting at the hip here to get really my gun shooting at you guys to correct so much stuff. There's just so much wrong with this podcast, and excuse me for spitting. I'm just foaming at the mouth to speak to you.
It seems like an occupational hazard with that level of lisp, so I understand.
Yes, I have to go drain my mouth. I'm gonna leave now. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much. I'll be here next time. Thank you.
Oh God, that voice is phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this up? I finished The Great Pretender, and I know that we wanted to talk about that a little bit.
I have not finished it. I have not finished it. Whoa, I'm so sorry. I didn't finish it. All right.
Okay, that's fine.
But
if you feel that way.
But I think it's time I recommend you something that I think might be a little bit out of your ballpark.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I am definitely down to do our recommendations for next episode. Please hit me with yours.
So, seeing as you lived in Florida at some time, I'm thinking that you might have played football at one time or another.
Funnily enough, okay, so I'm 6'4", over 300 pounds, and when I went to high school, the first thing that they did was try and recruit me to the football team. But I was a thespian.
Oh, no football for you.
Yeah, I turned them down. But I did, funnily enough, for one summer, join the football team so I could work out.
Wow. You went just to summer training camp and didn't even play? You went through the hardest part of football and then you quit.
I went through the hardest part of football, but also I went through the hardest part of football because it would when I found out that the schedules would conflict with the acting, I quit it because of that specifically. But I don't like hitting people. I don't like football. I've never liked football. Football's never been a big part of our family. I don't watch it. But I thought it would be a good way to get in shape, and it kind of was, but it was also it was one of the hardest workouts I've ever had in my life. Just running. It's just a lot of running in the heat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know if this is gonna work for you, but I think given that you are a documentarian and you like stories about people, you should check out.
I love sports documentaries. Sports documentaries are amazing.
Last Chance U on Netflix. So there's 5 seasons of it currently, and I can honestly say you should just go to the 5th season. I think that the first 4 seasons show these the first 2 seasons show this historic team at EMCC out of Mississippi, and they're like this great JUCO college, junior college, community college essentially, that recruits kids who are either couldn't get to a D1 school or went to a D1 school and got kicked out, and now they're there to then perform well to then go D1. But the coaches are problematic. They're basically just using them to better themselves. There's teachers who care and they want to do better for them. But I think the through line is all the stories show these kids who are really struggling, maybe from their home life or maybe through other things. And football is their way out of the situation. And some of them can't get out of their own way. It's really sad to see. And some of them
How close is it to Friday Night Lights?
It is real life Friday Night Lights.
Okay. I mean, I fucking loved that movie and that show. And I've seen Last Chance U on Netflix. And I think I watched when season 1 came out. I think I watched that whenever that was a long time ago.
So you saw the big fight brawl and the whole issue with that school.
I think so. It's definitely not enough for me to remember it right now, so it's definitely worth me watching.
Well, then I think you should go right to season 5, because season 5 is a non-problematic coach who genuinely cares about his students in a school that's not like blatantly
abusing the kids.
Abusing the kids, yes, exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe what I'll do is I'll try and watch season 1, and like maybe I'll do a couple episodes of season 1 just to get a feel for like what the show was in the beginning, and then I'll hop over to season 5 and see non-tormented children.
Please.
Yeah, no, that's kind of awful to think that, school's just like using these kids to bolster their own reputation.
I mean, and they're kids. They're only 18 and 19 years old. Like, they are athletic
children.
Freaks, but they're children, utterly children. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah. They hardly know how to cook for themselves. Or some of them do because they've been basically on their own the entire time, which makes it even sadder, you know?
Well, not only that, from every sports documentary that I've seen, it's like the sport takes up your whole life, too. It's kind of all you know, and it's all that we expect out of people who are doing sport, right? There's actually a new video on Unlimited Free Time that I'm going to do. I don't know if you've seen The Weight of Gold. I'm not recommending this week, but it's a documentary about that Michael Phelps did about how just awful being an Olympian kind of is, honestly. You know, you put your entire life into it, whether you win or not. Even if you do win, it's like, what do you do after that? You know, you just spent all these formative years of your life being the best in the world, but you know, at the end of the day, being the fastest swimmer doesn't mean that you're like gonna be okay financially for the rest of your life, or how to raise a kid, or how to, you know, develop all these emotional relationships. Yeah. So it's,
you have all these caretakers all your life, and suddenly you're left on your own devices after that.
Yeah, and it also completely delves into the subject of suicide and, you know, all this. It's an amazing documentary. It's on HBO, and I'm going to be reviewing it on Unlimited Free Time. I think either my next video or my second to next video. But that's not my recommendation. I do recommend people watch that. But my recommendation for you this week is a podcast. You got me listening to a podcast, and I was trying to think about other podcasts that I loved and I'd listened to. And then while I was listening to Dead Eyes, I saw an advertisement for a podcast called The Rabbit Hole. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then it sounded like it was exactly right up our alley, because the whole podcast, and it's 8 episodes long, each episode's about 45 minutes. Okay. And it's done by the New York Times. So you know, really prestigious writing and stuff like that. It is about how the internet, specifically kind of around the time that the internet started changing with YouTube and 4chan and stuff like that, how it has been affecting us currently, and how it is changing us as a society, and taking a active deep dive look into the politics and nature of being online all the time. It specifically goes into QAnon, it goes into YouTube conspiracy theory, all this stuff, but it is maybe one of the best podcasts I've listened to just from an audio standpoint. Like it's like listening to a documentary. They have all of these amazing like audio cutaways and I don't want to say visuals because they're not visuals, but the way they layer their audio with clips and stuff from YouTube and CNN and all these other things, you really feel like if you would like just close your eyes, you could visualize everything that's happening in your mind's eye. Wow. And it's also deeply interesting to me as a person who's creating stuff for YouTube and who is online all the time, and how the internet, you know, it's this monolith. It's this behemoth that, you know, we can't get away from anymore, right? Like there's no getting away from the internet. So it's kind of like, what do we do now that we've made it this big? And we've
how do we live with it? How do we live with this beast? Well, that's a hell of a recommendation, man. I can't wait to listen to this thing.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fucking amazing, and I can't wait to hear your take on it, especially because I know that you recently just started doing YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. So I think the second that any person starts like doing them, you want to learn more about them. And this is this is an interesting documentary, podcast documentary that is all about that. So that is my recommendation for next time. It is Rabbit Hole, and yours to me is Last Chance U.
Specifically season 5.
Specifically season 5. I'm going to check out a little bit of season 1 to get a flavor of where the show kind of evolved from and kind of went
real
from.
Toxic to kind of uplifting.
Awesome. Got anything else that you'd like to talk about before we sign off for the day?
Nope. Please check me out on YouTube at Show Me the Chaos. Check me out on Twitch at Show Me the Chaos. And if you want to see some sexy photos of me, look me up at War Chow on Instagram. And that's Chow, Chao.
Absolutely. I actually have a recommendation. Warren has a phenomenal girlfriend who also has a YouTube channel. She recently did a video where she cuts Warren's hair. I found it very funny. I highly recommend that. If you'd like to promote her channel a little bit, I'm giving you the floor.
Well, if you want to watch my girlfriend's YouTube channel, which you most certainly should, and I most certainly am doing nothing but publicizing how excellent she is. She did the craziest challenge for her birthday. She spends 23 days posting and filming, editing, and posting a new video for 23 days straight of a new activity she's never done before. And with that, she started a new channel to celebrate that challenge, and it's called Something New with Karen. And you can find her at the Karen Sepp. And it was a real challenge, but it was so amazing, all the things she pulled off. And one of those activities was cutting my hair. We gave each other a makeover. We went jet skiing. So please check out my girlfriend's channel, Something New with Karen.
No, I enjoyed watching them. I also enjoyed the sushi episode. I thought that one was very cute.
Oh, thank you.
It was so cute.
Yeah, we're just a happy couple making sushi.
You can follow me at all_the_birds. You can follow me on YouTube. I am at Unlimited Free Time, where we do all things related to movies and TV. If you'd like to kind of check out my most recent video, it's about an interview that I did with Alejandro for his new film Millennium Bugs, which is coming out on... Its world premiere is on the 4th, so this may not be out at that point, but either way, it's a cool interview with one of my friends who's a really cool filmmaker. And yeah, so that is it for this episode of Pop Culture Party, people. We here at the Pop Culture offices want you to know that we love you, we care about you, and that we put the cult in pop culture. Bye!